Hey there, welcome to our channel. Let's continue with our episode. In the previous episode, we have worked on add to cart and we have added a couple of functionality also to the repository to handle the create cart functionality. And before the create cart, we have checked like how if the cart is exist and how we can handle different scenarios in terms of like delete the cart, update cart, etc. Right, so now in this episode, we're going to handle how we can get the card information, right? So once the card has been created, then we need to make sure like while user try to get the card information, then definitely it has to get it back to user, right? Then let's go to our get card functionality, and here we are going to add couple of lines of code, right, to handle our get card data. But before that, as you can see in the user service, we have added one more thing that is called our catalog repository, right? Because at certain point of time, we need to get some card data or maybe some product informations, all right? So that's why we have added this repository stuff here. And while we are instantiating this user service, then we need to take care of this repository also properly injected to our user service, right? So let's go to our user handler here. So here, on the top of the whole file, you can see here somewhere we are instantiating, yeah, this one. While we are creating an instance of our user service, here we need to add one more parameter. This is going to be the repository, and this is the same way we are going to inject the repository. It's called repository and new catalog repository. And similar way, we are going to pass the database reference here, right? So now you can see our user service is perfect, right? So at any point of time, we're going to call, then user service is going to respond all the data from our repository, like our catalog repository. That is where we have been used here in our here in the bottom side, maybe yeah, create card. So here somewhere we have verified the product informations from our repository. Yeah, this one. You can see we are fetching it out. We are fetching here the product information, whether this product is exist or not, right before adding to the cart. Cool. So now we are aligned. Everything is smoothly hooked up for the create card. So now let's go add some code in our get card functionality, right? Let's go here. And here, first of all, what we are gonna do, the same way we did our grab the authenticated user, right? Because the user information is going to be needed in order to grab the recent card or maybe user card, right? The similar thing we did here. You can see we have grabbed here the current user the similar way, right? So let's grab this line from here, and yeah, here, because this is a kind of get call, so we no need any kind of request validator or maybe body parsing stuff. It's not going to be required because we are not accepting the request, any request body here, right? Only this user information is enough, right? So now we have our user here. So let's try to grab all the card informations for our current user, right? So in this case, card and error, and we will call our service. This is going to be our handler service, find card. So in this case, let's try to find it out whether this find card function, is it returning something, right? So far it is not returning anything. This is perfectly fine. We're gonna handle, we are going to add some code quickly. But let's make sure this card and error are handled correctly. So at least we can return some data based on this response. So we will check if error is not equal nil, then definitely we need to return rest rest dot error message maybe, or we can say internal error. It's gonna be okay. So error, and what error we are going to send. Let's say we're not going to send direct error from that is received from our find card options, or maybe we can customize this error also. So something like this, like error, new error, maybe new error, right? So we are going to say card does not exist. If there are no any errors, then definitely we need to return this card, right? So let's try to return the card is card, right? And this is the way we can send it back. Now our get card handler function is covered, right? So everything is we have added right here. So let's go to our find cart functionality from our service. That is, we have added to our user service. Let's go here. And here we are going to add a couple of lines of code just to find it out our cart items, right? So in this case, let's grab our cart items and error. We are going to patch it out from our repository that is called find cart items, right? And if you go to the find cart items here in the repository, you can see we have added all the required functions for our cart beforehand, right, in our previous episodes. And now only we are interested to find all the cart items, all the whole bunch of cart items, right? And not only one single item, right? Whole bunch. So now what we have done here, let's have a look here, right? If you go here in the find cart items, as I explained in our previous episode, we are just to try to find out all the cart items belongs to that user, right? And we are querying it out like where user ID is our user ID, right? This UID. And end of the day, it is just returning bunch of cards, right? And then let's go to our user service. Let's try to handle all these errors, right? So here two things. Either you can handle the errors here or you can handle the errors here, right? It's up to you, like which way you are feeling better. And I would say this error, you can customize it if you are going to implement any kind of loggers, right? It always it makes sense, like adding the loggers. If you're going to introduce loggers, then you need to customize your error right here. And if you're not going to use any kind of logger, right? And then definitely I would say just like add the error, handle the errors here, and send the customized error from your service level, not in the handler level. So in that way, you no need to add any kind of custom message in the handler level. It's always come from the service level, right? It may be deep inside. So all right, that's a kind of different conversation, right? Let's try to keep it like that way only. So in this case, what we're gonna do, we can directly send this response from here also. Directly gonna say like return like this, right? Or otherwise, what we can do, we can directly say like cart items gonna be okay. This cart items, and we can say the error. So maybe we can just like log println the errors, right? This is not going to be println log printf, right? Because we are going to format the error as well as error will be our error, right? So this is going to be like this. Perfect. So at least we can get it what kind of error is going to happen right here, right? Here, if I'm going to return these cart items as an example, return cart items and error, then you can see it's throwing the error. Why? Because we can see here we are using interface. So we're not gonna say like this interface has to return from here. Instead of this, what we are gonna say, it has to type, right? So let's use our cart, because the find cart is absolutely need to return the cart items, right? So in this case, domain and the cart, right? So now you can see it's complying. There are no any errors. Perfect. So now our find cart items also covered, right? Let's go here, user handler, and we can see everything is covered here, right? So now we are ready to spin our server, right? So right before spin our server, let's try to have a look at the flow, add to cart and get cart flow. So here, while we are going to create our cart, then add to cart handler going to call, right? So while this handler going to call, then we have grabbed our request body, and here we have grabbed our authenticated user. And we're passing it on this request and the authenticated user to create cart function of the user service. If you go to the create cart functionality here in the user service, then you can see we are trying to find it out if the user has any existing cart. If the user has any existing cart right here, then we'll try to update the cart or delete the cart based on the scenario, in terms of like if input quantity is 0, then we are going to delete the cart. And if it is not 0, then we will try to update the cart. So this is not the create cart, this is going to update cart, right? Then finally, this case, like if the cart is exist, then this is going to handle. And if the cart doesn't exist, then we are going to create the cart. So in that case, we need the product. So that's why we are just trying to find it out the existing product from our product repository, right? The catalog repository. And here, this is evaluation is happening like this is not greater than 0. You can say this is less than 1, because we're trying to find it out. If the product ID is 0, then we're gonna throw some kind of error from here. The product product doesn't exist or product not found, right? Then if our product is exist, then we are creating the cart, then we are returning all the updated informations of the cart items by finding the user ID, right? This is what we are doing here. And the similar applies for our get cart. If you go to the get cart, you can see while we're going to call our get cart function, then the get cart handler going to execute. Then again here, it's a kind of get request. That's why we are grabbing only the authenticated user, and we are passing this the user ID to our find cart function of the user service. And while we're going to call this find cart user function, then you can see we're grabbing all the related cart items of that particular user, right? Find cart items by user ID, right? And eventually we're returning these cart items, right? And this is what we're returning from here, right? Perfect. So now let's go ahead and spin our application. So here, make server. Now we will visit our postman, and here inside the postman, so if you don't have this collection, then you can find it out this collection from our description below of this video. So here in the postman, we have a collection that is called Go Ecommerce Masterclass. So if you don't have this collection, then definitely you can find it out in our repository, right? So here inside this user service, we are going to sign up one user, right? So this is our email ID, let's say. So let's try to use to register, right? So register successful. Then we're going to use the same email ID to login and go to login. And here we're going to do login, right? So we have received our token and we have used the script. That's why this response token will be automatically assigned to our environment variable that is going to use here in the root directory, right? So here authorization, you can see we have used the same variable per bearer token. All right, so now let's go to our product service here, right? And here inside this product service, we can get the products. Let's try to find out all the products. So right now we have two products. One is product ID 8 and another one is product ID 9. So let's try to add this product to our cart, right? So let's go to again to the user service, right? Here in the user service, and go here to the create cart. And here what we are going to do, like this is the URL which is going to call our cart. If you can see here in the source code, you can see in the user handler, right? So this is the cart, right? And the post request, this is we are going to call. And right now we're sending the quantities 2 and product ID is 8. Let's try to set the quantity as 1, right? Now let's try to call this add cart functionality, create cart functionality. Now can you see it is returning the response, like quantity is 1. Let's try to set the quantities 2, let's say. Again, we are going to increase the quantity. So because this logic we are going to handle in our front end, right? Then you can see now quantity is updated. So that means the create and update cart is working, right? All right, so here we are using the same route for create and update, but it's highly recommended to split the route to dedicated one, which is going to be like, update for update, delete for delete, or maybe create for create one, right? Perfect. So now what we can do, let's try to grab our cart item. So because you can see our create cart is working, right? Add to cart is working. So only one scenario, maybe we can test it out, but let's try to grab our cart item first. Then maybe we can check that out, right? So here, get cart items. So in this case, you can see this is a kind of get call and user and cart. This is the same route that is we're adding here, right? This is the route, right? And if we're going to call that one, then get route has to call. Then we should have to get the similar response just like our create cart, right? So let's try to call this one. Perfect. So now you can see our get cart functionality also working, right? So maybe in upcoming lessons, what we can do, we can split our cart functionality into the separate routes for update, delete, and create, right? But as of now, just by looking at the time, we're going to adding like this way. So we need to cover the profile and the order part, as well as maybe in the later stage, we can do all this refactor stuff while we're going to convert all the services to microservice. Cool. Then let's go to source code once again. And here, now we are going to cover the create profile section. As you can see, right before placing the order, we need to have our address and we need to have all the informations beforehand for our buyer, right? So let's try to tackle that. Perfect. So now we're going to work on the profile section. So here already we have the two routes. That is, one is called create profile and get profile. And one more route we need to introduce, that is just for editing the profile, because at any point of time, maybe we can come back, or maybe user can come back and user can change a couple of information. As an example, maybe name, maybe phone number or something like that, right? So in that case, we need to introduce one more route. Let's try to introduce quickly. This is going to be private routes, and we can say pets. Why pets? Because we're not gonna use like we're not going to replace everything, only just a few information, only this selected informations we are going to update. So that's why we're saying pets here, and the route will be the same. This is going to be profile, and so far we don't have any handler, so let's try to create one handler function as well. As this is going to be update profile, let's say profile. Perfect. So now we need to create this update profile handler function, right? So let's go to here in the get profile handler function. Right after this get profile handler function, we're going to create one more. This is going to be func and then the similar kind of response, maybe we can send it back. All right, so let's try to grab all this data from here and paste it here. This is going to be update profile. All right, so now we have our dedicated routes for our create profile, get profile, and update profile. So in order to move forward with the create profile, we need to create a couple of things. So first of all, you can see in the user request, right? So we have our user login, user sign up, and everything is here, but there are no any informations regarding the address. So that is, we need to add it here. All right, so what we are going to do, right after the seller input, maybe here we can, this is the right place where maybe we can put the address stuff. So let's go ahead. We're going to create one type that is called address input struct, right? So inside this address input struct, we will be going to add address line 1 and address line 2, maybe city. We're going to add the city, right? And we're going to add the postcode, right? And finally the country. So these are the informations going to be needed for address input, because while we're going to deliver the package, then address is most important stuff, right? Landmark, maybe house number, etc. Then city is the second one, and the third one is most essential one is the postcode, right? So that can be recognized by that particular address, right? Now we have our address input. Maybe what we need to do, we need to send a couple of more informations to update our profile. So in that case, we need the first name and last name as well as. So let's try to create one more struct. This is going to be like type. Cool, our profile input is ready. Now let's close this file and go to here in the user handler again. And here, right before creating the profile, let's try to grab all these things. As an example, the user informations from here, right? So let's try to grab this user information, right? And add it here, because we need the existing user, like which user we are going to create the profile. That information is going to be needed, right? Only login user can create the profile, not the if the user is not logged in or maybe not authorized, right? They cannot do that, right? They can only just sign up. All right, on the time of the sign up, we have collected a couple of informations, but for profile, this extended information is going to be necessary. That's why we are grabbing this authenticated user here. Okay, so now we have our user. Let's try to add some code quickly. So first of all, what we need the request, right? Request. And the request, what kind of request we are going to grab? This is going to be our profile input request. And we are simply going to parse the error, like an error, and here we are going to simply evaluate the error body parser and the request. And if there are any kind of error, then we are going to return some kind of like response, like please provide valid input, something like that. In a similar way we did for our card or some other post request, right? Now you can see our user is not being used, right? That's perfectly fine. So what we can do, just to satisfy, let's try to log here. So printf log.printf. Let's try to log our user, so it will not going to complain, right? Now this is the place where we are going to create our profile, right? Then once we have this created the profile, then we are going to return some data. So let's try to create our profile. So error, right? So we are only interested in error or create profile. And we can see like we have our user ID. That user ID, we can grab it from here, and we are passing the request from here, right? Then we will be going to check, right? So if the error is not equal nil, then we are going to return the error, then unable to create the profile, something like this, right? We're going to send a message. We're going to take care of this create user profile shortly, right? Everything is set up for our handler. Let's go ahead to the user service and take care of this create user profile as well. As to go to our user service and let's check it out. Do we have any functions right there, right? Order, create order, and we have cart, right? And yes, we have our create profile, right? So this is the function which is we need to call. So let's go here in user handler, create user profile, create profile, let's say. Anyway, it's a kind of user, right? So we are using this create profile for our seller and buyer both. So that's why we have just added like this way. Or maybe you can rename this one as kind of like create user profile. It's up to you, right? So let's try to use this create profile. And now if you go to the create profile, it has nothing, right? So we need to add a couple of codes. Then the similar, we can just like, maybe we can tie with our get and update profile from the handler. Then we can maybe, once our handler is done, right, for all of the three functions, then purely we can focus on our user service. So let's try to add some code right there as quick as possible. For get profile as well as we're gonna do like in a similar way. We are grabbing the authenticated user, and finally what we can do, we're gonna say like an error here, error, and we will say handler.service handler.service that profile. So this is going to be like service dot get profile, and here we are going to pass to this user ID. I think here profile is going to be needed. Profile will be needed. So we will check like if there is any kind of error, then just return the error from here, unable to get profile. And if there are any error, then definitely we can say profile, we can send it back here. All right, profile, cool. Then the get profile also it's covered like from the handler side, right? Then update profile. All right, so we have covered our get profile also from our handler side, right? Let's go ahead and cover our update profile as well as, right? So in the update profile, we are going to grab the similar way, the authenticated user first, right? Then what we can do, we can just simply going to grab our request. Maybe we can borrow some code from here, like from here, maybe whole section from here. And let's go here, just paste it out here. Now we have our authenticated user here, we have our request here, and let's call our update profile function, right? So in this case, error will be our handler service update profile. And now we need to tackle our error. If error is not equal nil, then certainly we need to return some kind of error message, right? Update profile, unable to update the profile. And if everything goes well, then what we're gonna say, instead of this, profile updated successfully. Cool. So our handler side, everything is right now tackled, right? From our create profile and get profile and update profile. Now let's go to our user service. So we are going to grab one by one all the functions, right? First of all, we're going to handle our create profile. So in the create profile function, you can see like input, we are accepting input as any, right? So this input exactly we need to change it. Why we need to change it? Because we need to get to know like what kind of parameters we are going to pass it on to the repository to create the profile, right? That's why let's try to change this input first. So here instead of this any, what we can do, we can say dto.profile input, right? Here in the create profile, now the input parameter will be giving us all the autocomplete in terms of like first name, last name, address, etc., right? And while we are going to create the profile, we will be create one address, right? And that address will be associated with our user. And as you can see right now, we have our user table here, right? But we don't have any address fields here, right? So that's why what we need to do, we need to create one address domain right here in entity here. Let's try to create that one. And we're going to incorporate that address with our user, right? So here inside this domain, let's create one Go file. And this file will be our address, address.go. Right, so here we're going to add some code quickly. This is going to be like type will be address struct, and Perfect. So now you can see like we have created our address, and this address user ID, this is exactly incorporated with our user. So let's go to our user. We have all of the fields, right? But while we're going to fetch our user, then user need to return the address as well, as not only the first name, last name, or all of the user information along with the address. As I said in our previous episodes, we're going to incorporate our cart and our orders as well, as right. So this similar way we are going to do it. So this is the first step of the incorporation. So let's try to add it. We're going to add address. Address will be our address, right? The address that is we have already created here, this one, right? So that means while we're going to fetch our user, then it will return the address as well, as. So to return this address, we need to add some specific query that is called prelude. That is we are going to add in our query while we're going to fetch our user profile as a first step of the relation of our user with the address. So this is the incorporation we are doing right here. So we can add different type of relation, just like one-to-one or one-to-many, something like that. That is also we are going to cover. But in a basic way, you can say while we are going to add a relation here, then you simply just add the struct in the parent struct, and make sure the child struct that is we are going to incorporate, it has the particular ID that is called the user ID. That is we need to add it here, right? So this user ID, exactly this user ID. Perfect. So now we have our address model ready, and now we can go ahead here, right, in the user service, and we can add some code. But before that, what we need to do, we need to handle the creation of the address and update the profile and everything we need to handle in our user repository. So here in the user repository, you can see we don't have any information related to profile. All right. So let's try to add all the functions. So here, profile, and we will be going to say the create profile, where while we're going to create the profile, we need to just send the address, right? Because the profile, as a part of the profile, we have our user information. That is, we can update the user information. As an example, the first name, last name, we can use this update user call, this function to update our user related data. But address related data we don't have so far. So that's why we have just added this create profile especially for address, right? And we can say one more function is going to be needed. This is going to be our update profile, right? Cool. So these are the two functions are going to be needed for a while. And while we're going to fetch the user, then we are going to take care of this address right there, right? So let's go here in the down of the file, and here what we can do, let's try to import the missing methods, right? So now we have imported our create profile and update profile function, right? Let's try to add some code right here. So here we're going to add the error will be like r.db, and the create what we are going to create. We are going to create the address, right? This address is exactly this coming from here, right? It's a domain, right? And now we're going to evaluate if we have any error, right? If we have any error or not equal nil, then maybe we can send it back. Then we can say create error on the create profile, right? With address, right? Otherwise we can say return nil, right? And similar applies for our update as well as. So let's try to add some code to our update profile as well as. So here we're going to say error will be r.db, and where we need to find it out like the profile first, then only we can do that, right? So in user ID will be our user ID, then update will be going to our all the domain fields, right? Then finally, the similar way we can say, let's try to grab this piece of code and add it right here. We're going to say add error on update profile with address, right? Because here only we are updating the address, not the user direct profile, right? Then what we can do, this piece of code is perfectly fine. Like an update profile is gonna work, right? Because as you can see, what we're updating here, we're updating our address, and by looking at the user ID, this user ID here, right? So create profile is perfectly working, right? So far, like we have, though we have not called this repository function, still it's gonna work, that's for sure. But how about the find user? Because you can see, like if you go to the find user function here, Here you can see we are returning the data, but there are no any address information. So in that case, what we can do, let's try to use one piece of code right here, which is going to help us to find out the correlated informations about the user. So this is called preload, right? And here we need to define like which field we are going to load. This is called address, right? Then don't forget to add a dot right there because it's a kind of chain of the functions, right? So now you might have thinking why we have added this address. So if you go to our user model right here, you can see like we have the name, exact name we need to define right here, not this one, right? Always need to define this one because our Go ORM can identify by these names, right? Not by using these names, right? So that's why we have added this user address is like this one, right? And while we are going to call right now the find user, it is going to return the address as well as, right? Perfect. So now our returning part is done and update part as well as it's going to cover from there. So let's go ahead to the user service and we're going to add some code in order to complete our create profile section, right? So I think that's all for today. In the next episode, we're going to cover all of this stuff along with our create order. All right, then see you in a bit. Bye-bye.